Praise God. Hope you're having a blessed day today. Today I'm going to do a special devotion because today is December the 7th. Now, that date probably doesn't mean very much to most people today, but it is a day that is a very important date in our history, because if you go back to December the 7th, 1941, it is the day that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. This is now, we were already involved in World War II, but we hadn't officially declared war on anyone. Our involvement was more of like supply and helping out in different areas, maybe with intelligence and so forth and so on, helping England as they were fighting the Germans, and then over into Asia there was the Japanese fighting with the Chinese, and so the world was at war, so to speak, and America was kind of trying to stay on the outside of it because we had gotten into World War One, and people didn't want to get in another world war. It was bad. It was terrible, and so we wanted to pull back and not have to worry with it and let the world just fight out all their problems. But we got pulled into it anyway. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and let me just give you some very quick details about that and some highlights, if you would. It was on Sunday. They attacked it on Sunday morning. The Japanese did. Now I've read different things on this, and I've got some books on it as well about World War II, and it talks about Pearl Harbor, and anywhere from 175 to 300 Japanese aircraft attacked Pearl Harbor, and you read different stories about different numbers, so I don't know exactly. Of course, I wasn't there, but it was a lot of aircraft came in, dropping their bombs, torpedoes, and so forth on our naval base there. And it was and let me get this right here because I don't want to pay no disrespect whatsoever. 2,403 people died that day. A lot of soldiers died, and civilians as well. A lot of soldiers died. And also 1,178 were wounded or injured that day. So when the Vice President of the United States and the President of the United States tries to compare what happened to January 6th, when the people run into the Capitol building with flagpoles and so forth, and things like that, and says this was like another Pearl Harbor or not 9/11, I don't know what they're even talking about, because that statement is just so beyond belief when you think of something like that. Pearl Harbor was like 9/11, or 9/11 was like Pearl Harbor. It was the real deal. There wasn't okay, this could be this could be that. There was people dying. There was soldiers trapped on boats that drowned, burn up, and so forth. It was terrible. It was horrible, and it pulled us, like I said, into World War II. We declared war on Japan, Germany, and so forth, and then we went from there. Now, of course, if you can go and do this on YouTube, and you can hear the speech of Franklin Roosevelt as he talked about it, the day that we'll live in infamy. Get my words right there. That we would always remember this day in this country, where the ruthless attacks on a nation that we just we wasn't at war with, but now we are, or not now, but we were after 1941 on December 7th. We lost about 18 U.S. vessels that day, sunk or damaged. About 18 U.S. Naval vessels were sunk or damaged. 8 battleships included in that number. Now, what the Japanese did was really, really hurt our forces. I mean, they killed a lot of soldiers. They wounded a lot of people. They tore up a naval base. They sunk a lot of ships, and wounded a lot of ships as well. That would take a long time to have to repair. Now, saying all of those things, it was a day that will live in infamy. I'll get that word right. That word's a tongue twister to me. It's one we just won't forget. And I hope that these generations that are living today, I wish the schools would teach a little more of the real history of our country, we've gotten so entangled with everything that's racist and everything else that we want to call America racist on every turn, and try to point out, I don't have nothing against teaching the true history, that we did have slaves in this country and things like that. And we had racial issues definitely in this country, no doubt about it. But I hate it when that's all the focus and there's no focus on nothing else. And our students just forget days like this and don't even know about it. Sometimes I think our students are taught very little about 9/11 and what happened actually on 9/11 when the Muslim terrorists attacked our country and flew planes into the buildings and so forth. Sometimes we just don't teach, and what you don't teach, you'll forget. What you don't read, what you don't learn, you'll forget. Even if you've learned it in the past, if you don't go back and read it again, you'll have a tendency to forget it, and out of sight and out of mind, so to speak. So I'm thankful this is on the calendar. I'm thankful we observe this day. I'm thankful that this day is something that is we honor the soldiers, and we remember the soldiers and honor those that gave so much. I want to go to a scripture here that's in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse number 8. It talks about there's a time of war and a time of peace. Well, we went into a time of war at that time in our country. We were at war. We don't want to be at war. I don't know that any country wants to be at war, but it sort of seems like there's some countries in this world that really, really love to fight. And they want to fight. They want to try to conquer their neighbors. They want to try to annihilate their neighbors, wipe their neighbors off the map or whatever. They want to take those countries, whether it's Russia, taking Ukraine, and the Arab people want to do away with Israel and wipe them off the map and so forth. Whatever nation it is that wants to, China wants to take over Taiwan, and different nations, and then of course boundaries get shifted, and the European boundaries have shifted all over the place through the years. Nations have been called one thing and then they're called another thing, and that's happened the same way in the Middle East. And sometimes we don't realize how boundaries have shifted all through the years. We get kind of caught up on a current boundary of a nation, and we think, oh, well, that's always been that way. When if you go back and look at it, it's been that way for the last 40 or 50, 60 years or something like that. Because boundaries get shifted and so forth, and borders get shifted around. Like I said, whole names of the country get changed into something from one to another. But there was a time, and you say, well, Pastor, are we at war right now? I don't think we're at war like this. But there are definitely those people that would want to hurt the United States and want to make war with our country. We think about Iran being one of the chief people that would try to make war with our country, and death to America and their chance and so forth, or a China or a Russia or a host of other Islamic nations that really don't care much for America. I know that it seems like the world's on a powder keg sometimes, just ready for somebody to light the fuse and everything to go crazy. Yes, it does seem like that. But on December 7th, 1941, that day will be remembered, because that day truly was a terrible, terrible bad day. We've had other days that have been comparable to it, but not a lot. And this day we should stop and remember. We should stop and memorialize those that died and those that gave all, and those that gave up everything. When the soldier dies on the battlefield, he gives it all up. He gives up everything that he was at that moment and everything he would be in the future. Maybe at that moment he was just a young man without a wife, without a family. So he gave that up. Maybe he had a wife, maybe he had children, and he gave up those and left them behind. He gave up being a grandfather, a great-grandfather. He gave up to whatever his life would have been after his military service. Whether he would have become a teacher at school, a policeman, a fireman, whether he would have become a carpenter and build houses, whether he'd have been the plumber that come around to your house and fixed your sink, or the electrician. Whatever he would have been, the farmer in the field, he never got a chance to fulfill that because he gave everything. His last full measure of devotion, as our former President Lincoln said. He gave everything on the battlefield and he left it all there. And we should not forget. And we should remember. And we should pray for our servicemen today that are stationed all over this world. Many of them in harm's way. We hear of things on a regular basis where a service member died. Sometimes it's in a training incident. Sometimes not. Whatever the case may be. Recently a Osprey, I think, went down off the coast of Japan. It was, and I believe there was 6 members of our military that died in that crash. And sometimes that just kind of flies right over our head, and we don't even think about it. But those men gave up all they would become as well. Training, ready, the watchman on the wall, if you want to call it that if something broke loose, something happened, they would be ready to spring into action. We enjoy our way of life here in America. We like our football games and our baseball games, and we like to be able to go out and have a good time, and we go to our concerts and to our movies and all of these other things. We enjoy our barbecuing and our festivities and all these different things. We enjoy going to having freedom of worship, going to the house of the Lord whenever we choose. We enjoy so much freedom and liberty. And we have to remember, the first place freedom and liberty comes from is God. And the second is because there was a soldier that was willing to lay it down and give up everything that he was at that moment and everything he would be later on. God bless our soldiers. And God bless our men and women who are stationed all over this world right now at this moment. May God keep them. May God protect them. And may God be with them. God bless you. Thank you for listening to this. And I hope you will take a moment today to stop and remember.